Hi there, it's the Dutch Sims 4 Master and welcome to this brand new The Sims 4 Around the World speed build. So today I'm building a house from Sri Lanka, which I think is my favorite around the world speed build so far, because seriously this house has turned out to look so cool if you ask me, because it's built in the jungle, and actually never before in like my entire Sims career have I built an actual true jungle house, which is sort of half in the trees, or at least it's not a tree house, but it's sort of like literally in the jungle. I built it in Granite Falls, and I personally think this house turned out to be so cool. And my inspiration for this house, or actually this entire video, came from an architecture book which I got from one of my friends. And in that book, there are like very many images and stories about Sri Lankan architecture, which I found very interesting because it's quite modern, you'll notice that later on as well, but also very tropical, because Sri Lanka is a very diverse country. You've got beaches, but you've also got a jungle like you see over here, and I've decided to go for the jungle house because I thought it would be something different. And also I saw a really cool image of a very cool jungle house in the book, so I thought, you know, I'm just gonna build that and try to sort of recreate it. I've not literally copied it, but there are some inspiration things I got from several houses in the book. So from that house, because if you've ever read or seen architecture books, you'll know that often they showcase like 20 or 30 houses. I've gotten small aspects from a couple of houses which I thought were really cool, and in that way I've sort of combined those, added my own creativity and my own design to in the end create a really cool Sri Lankan house. And I think this one turned out to be really cool because it's actually very accurate. Based on what I read in the book, this is really what an expensive Sri Lankan house looks like. And I know that Sri Lanka is also a country where people don't have, or there are people who don't have a lot of money to spend and who might not be able to, or who are definitely not able to afford a house like this. I know that this is like a special villa, but it is very typical for Sri Lanka, which is the reason I created this one. But I do know that this is not the regular Sri Lankan house, it's the regular Sri Lankan villa. So just take that into consideration before people might get like upset about that. But like, I'm very happy with the way it turned out, also because I got the inspiration from the architecture book, also because it is the first architecture book which I actually own. One of my friends went to Sri Lanka and she bought that book for me, and I thought it was so cool because I actually went to Bali. As you probably know, I went there like a month ago or even longer ago, and I arrived in one of the Airbnbs, and there was like a chunk of architecture books about Balinese architecture, and I've literally read them all and like visualized them all, and or not visualized, looked at them and analyzed. That's what I was looking for. I analyzed all of them simply because I think it's so interesting to read about. Obviously that's also why I'm going to be studying architecture next year, but this is like my first own architecture book, and I really hope that many will follow. But yeah, I just had a good time reading it, and I thought, you know, I'm just going to create an around the world speed build about that. So right here you already see that it's really taking shape. This is like the back of the build is like the most important part, or if you ask me, because as you can see it's very open, and then the front is more private, even though this one doesn't necessarily need it because it's in the middle of a jungle, so it's not like there's a road nearby. But still I felt like it would be realistic to create the front, or make the front a little bit more private, a little bit less open, and the front being as open as it is, as you see it over here. Also, it's a combination of like wood and metal, and yeah, it's actually a combination of brown, black and grayish colors. That's what I figured out while reading the book and analyzing all the builds there. I actually also looked like at all the floor plans to figure out what it worked like, and I also messaged that friend whether there are any like actual open outdoor bathrooms in Sri Lanka. She said there are, but probably like in like the luxurious villas, which is what this is obviously. So I have decided to add an outdoor bathroom, because in the book I read there were like few, like, or at least a couple of outdoor bathrooms, but it's not like you've got them everywhere. In Bali, you did see them everywhere, like outdoor bathrooms. We had one place we stayed in, which had like a really cool place. And I seriously, later on, if I ever live in like a tropical place, the Netherlands definitely is not tropical in case you were unaware. But then I definitely want to have like an outdoor bathroom, because it's so cool to be sort of in nature, having plants around, being able to look up and see like the moon shine where you're having a shower. That's so cool. And generally it just looks really cool as well. So I've gone for that. And also I feel like this is sort of like a very architectural build, sort of. It's not as logical. And looking or reading the books, I figured out, or especially reading this specific book I just talked about, I figured out that sometimes architecture is also like very functional. It's not just about the way it looks, and sometimes it's not the most expected way to finish something or do something, but therefore it is beautiful. And sometimes, to me, those buildings used to look like they're just a mess, sort of. But then when I try to sort of visualize that with this build as well, because in the end you'll see that the back isn't necessarily the most logical thing, also because it is so open planned that you've got like a regular wall or just a random wall somewhere. And it might seem random, but in the end, there is like a good use for that, because it will block the sun, or because it will be for privacy or whatever. Also, there's an infinity pool in the front, because it is still one of my houses. So therefore, infinity pools are always present, because I add them whenever I can, simply because they're cool. And also I try to add those roofs in the front. I'll change the color of them, by the way. But I added those because I thought it would be cool to sort of, in that, I never tried it before. It actually turned out to look cool. And we don't have terrain tools, obviously. I still hate that, but oh well, we can't change it, or at least I can't change it. There are some people in this world who can change it, but I'm not one of them. But I would have really found terrain tools very useful with this build, but with this I sort of try to implement that, because I really wanted to have those overhanging aspects, which I still managed to do in this way by making the lowest level not a foundation, but making it like an actual entire floor, and then the other two levels being the middle height. This is one of those more random areas where it seems like very architectural and not necessarily, it is good looking if you ask me, but it's also sort of special and sort of artistic, I guess. But that might be sort of strange for you to realize. If you get what I mean, please let me know, because you might think that I'm talking very randomly. But I tried to add some waterfalls there, but then I realized that it didn't really look cool, so I just left that wall sort of simple. But in the end, it doesn't really matter, because it does actually look cool. Because also I changed the wallpaper, or the wall painting, or the painting on the wall, into something different later on as well. I just, while working on this build, I think I finished it in like one day entirely. Or no, not this one. That's the Tokyo townhouse which I created. I finished that one in one day. This one, in one night, I actually created the entire exterior, and then the next morning I finished the interior. So I really was in a good flow, and I just finished it very quickly. Which is also because this one is pre-recorded. As you probably know if you've seen my previous videos, I'm currently in South Africa for a holiday, which is really cool. But therefore I did have to pre-record videos, because otherwise you would have no videos. Which is not a problem, but therefore I'm not able to upload as much. But at least whenever I'm uploading, it's a really cool speed build, or at least I'm very proud of the way the speed builds turned out. So hey, that's good. So also what you see is that there's very many terraces sort of, and patios, simply because I felt like that was sort of typical. That's what I noticed. Very many of these Sri Lankan houses have like very outdoor focused areas. The living room is, for instance, outdoors. Sometimes the kitchen is even outdoors. So here also I sort of left it open. As you can see, I have those archways there, which sort of make there be no boundary between outdoors and indoors, sort of, which I thought was pretty cool. And generally, yeah, this is just a very special build if you ask me, but I'm very curious to hear from you what you think of it. So let me know in the comments down below, and also don't forget that you can actually subscribe to my channel if you'd like to see more of these kinds of speed builds, so the around the world speed builds or just like regular speed builds. I upload those as well, because subscribing is just a really good thing to do, because in that way you see it whenever I upload videos, and the more people subscribe, the more videos I can actually make. And also the easier or the quicker I'll be reaching the 100,000 subscribers, which is like insane that I can even talk about the fact that I'll be reaching that someday. Because yeah, when I started, I didn't really have the intention to get as many subscribers as possible. I didn't even know what subscribers were, if I'm honest. It was just a friend who told me when I just created the channel, and I was looking at it because he was more into YouTube, as in he watched it and he had tried creating some videos, not very professionally necessarily, but he had created videos that he knew what it worked like. And I actually got a subscriber, and I was like, that was a subscriber back then. He had 3,000 subscribers, I believe, and that was pretty big considering that he was my second subscriber. And then a 3,000 subscriber channel subscribed to me, and he explained like, that's really cool because maybe you'll share your content and that's good and you get more subscribers. And I was like, what's a subscriber? So yeah, it really got out of hand. Right now I'm perfectly aware of what a subscriber is, but it's still very hard to think about those 100,000 people, because I mean, that's the entire Wembley Stadium, or just the biggest Dutch stadium twice. Like whenever I go to a concert, I'm like, we've got like quite a cool venue here in the Netherlands. It's called the Ziggo Dome, and I believe 17,000 people fit there. And whenever I'm at a concert, I'm like, okay, so 5 times this amount of people is the amount of people who have actually clicked that subscribe button. That's like, you can't think about that. That's just insane. But still, it is cool. And I'm very happy that you've all made that decision. So here I am actually starting with the exterior. Well, I've been working on the exterior all the time, but I'm working on the landscaping. That's what I mean. I've added a really cool plant or a tree in front of it, just to create that vibe of it being in the jungle. The landscaping isn't very special, because, you know, it is a jungle. You don't have a perfectly planned garden in the jungle. You don't really need it because you're in the middle of nature. So, I mean, that's cool already. So I did add a fireplace, which you see me creating over here. And then generally it was just like a load of plants and trees, and that in the end turned it into a jungle. Seriously, Sri Lanka is a country I'd really like to visit someday. And I think I will, because it's not a very expensive country necessarily. It is expensive to get there, but once you're there, it's like much cheaper than living in the Netherlands, to live there, sort of. So that's cool, but I've been traveling a lot lately, so that's probably not gonna happen. I still first have to save up some money for that. But yeah, adding some palm trees around here as well. Because, you know, it's a tropical country, then you need palm trees. Also, it's one of my speed builds, which means that there's always a palm tree to be found on the lot, because that's just the way I do it. Here you see me creating the living room, which is indoors. Well, no, it's outdoors, but it's indoors as far as lighting goes, because I've used a trick which I've explained in the Ibiza, I still don't know how to pronounce it. People have been laughing at me for pronouncing it incorrectly, but the Spanish island speed build, around the world speed build, which I did, there you see me explaining what it works like, but maybe previously in this video or just earlier in this video you already saw what I did as well. So if you want to know how I did it, create an outdoor indoor area with good lighting, just check out the first part of the video. But yeah, that's very typical for Sri Lankan architecture as well, or at least based on the book, which by the way is the book The New Sri Lankan House. In case you want to read it as well or buy it as well or whatever, that's the name of the book. It's really cool. It has some really cool images in it, and like the photography is on point, and the stories that are written about it, about the house, are interesting as well. And also you've got floor plan images, or just like the floor plans are in the book as well, and I personally find it very interesting to analyze those, because they are very useful to create speed builds like these, but also because, I'm going to be studying architecture. I've got to start living or thinking about floor plans and that way. And I must honestly say I think about that a lot already because of these Sims videos and SketchUp videos I create. But seeing that, you can actually be inspired by ways to solve problems with awkward shapes or whatever. So therefore I find it very interesting. What was I talking about? The outdoor living space. Well, I must say I've also added an indoor living space. That might not be the most realistic thing, but the reason I did that was because we had this really cool area here, this open 2-level, split level place, and I really had to place something there, and I decided to do it this way. Also, the interior is very modern. That's because often you see that whenever people build a house like this one, sort of a modern but still traditional jungle house, they tend to furnish it very lightly and also in a very modern way with some more artistic furniture, which is what I try to do in this build as well. So in case you're thinking like, why did you add it so modern? Well, I sort of went for the industrial vibe, which is clearly there, I guess. But yeah, it is sort of modern, but that doesn't make it less realistic, I think, because as we know, this is a Sri Lankan villa, not a regular Sri Lankan house. So, by the way, if you want to see other around the world speed builds, if you've come this far, most likely you've seen all of them already, because then you're like very dedicated. But if you haven't yet, I'm gonna name all the countries I've created around the world speed builds for. I'm looking at my scratch map above my desk right now to make sure that I'm not forgetting any house or any country, but I'm definitely will forget one. But Brazil, United States, and then specifically New York, which is really cool, and also Hawaii. Then any other tropical place like in the Caribbean, I'm not too sure already. Okay, moving on. Marrakesh, which is in Morocco. I've built a Spanish house, I've built an Ibiza house, a Parisian townhouse, a typical English house, a Dutch farmhouse, a Dutch snack bar, which Dutch people will know what it is. It's sort of like a place to get snacks, like good food, a German house, an Italian house, and an Italian restaurant, which might actually be one of my favorite builds as well after this one, because that one turned out to be really cool for some reason. A Greece house or a Greek house, a Swedish house, or was it Norwegian? No, it was Swedish. Then moving on, we've got a New Zealand house, a Cambodian house, a Thai house, a Balinese house, a Japanese house, and then I think that's it. Oh no, a Fijian house. Whoa, I really did a lot. So seriously, we've moved all over the globe already to create these, or at least unfortunately I've not been able to visit all those countries to create them, but I sort of moved all over the globe on the internet, on Google, to figure out pictures of those places. So is there any other thing? Now I want to know all of them. Okay, let me take a second to find out what other builds I did. But please let me know what your favorite one is so far, and also let me know if you've got any suggestions for new ones, because yeah, I really like to create this series. This is seriously the best series I've ever done, because you all really like it as well. So I'd really like to see your feedback on what I should do next. Okay, I've got a few new ones. Caribbean house, just very regular, not for a specific country, but it's just a very tropical one. An American house, just the typical American house which you see in the films. The Hawaiian house was, by the way, an Hawaiian restaurant. Then that's basically it. The Marrakesh build was divided in two. I think the Marrakesh build is really cool as well. If you've not seen that one, actually you should check them out. But the ones I just mentioned are like the best ones, to be honest. But yeah, currently I'm working on the second bedroom. I believe, yeah, I didn't actually look what I was doing because I had to look that up. Okay, I built the first bathroom already. That one was cool, but this bathroom turned out to be really cool as well. I really like those sinks which come with the fitness stuff pack. That is seriously my favorite sink, and maybe even my favorite item after those fitness armchairs, because I added those a lot in this build as well. But yeah, I think this one turned out to be really realistic and really cool looking. This is what an outdoor bathroom is like, with a lot of plants, open above it and just open to the sides as well, because otherwise it's obviously not really an outdoor bathroom. And then here I'm adding a gym, because that's what I saw in the architecture book as well. One really cool house had a gym like under it, exactly the way this one has it. So I thought, I'm just going to add it. But anyways, we're very close to the end of this video, so if you liked it, please let me know by leaving a like on this video. And also don't forget that you can follow me on Instagram, because then you can stay up to date with my adventures in South Africa, which is where I'm currently in. And that means that a South African speed build is coming up as well, obviously, because I believe they've got some very typical architecture as well, which is actually inspired by the Dutch, but you'll learn more about that in the next video, or at least it's not going to be the next one, but something coming up soon. Anyways, every week there will be a speed build, so this one was this week's, and next week there will be another one. So thank you for watching. Don't forget that there is still an overview coming, and then I hope to see you back later.